Hello and welcome to Series 4 of the Brett Chat Sport or BCS Podcast. This series we are going to be focusing on some of the issues that intersect with sport, as well as also previewing the NFL and NBA seasons. But this episode we're going to focus on previewing the 2025-26 English Premier League season, which kicks off this Friday. And let's start with the defending champions. Liverpool had a fantastic campaign in the league under new manager Arne Slot last season, winning the league by 10 points, and they had a talisman in Mohamed Salah, who arguably looked better than ever at the age of 32. Since then, they have spent over £200 million improving from a position of strength and replacing those who have left. They do, however, go into this season with heavy hearts after the tragic death of Diogo Jota at the beginning of July. For more on this, let's hear from friend of the show, Andrew Beasley, who not only will be previewing Liverpool's chances this season, but will also be giving his tribute to Diogo Jota.
Of course, there was the tragic death of Diogo Jota and his brother Andre Silva. Just a really sad situation. I mean, I've sort of spoken about it elsewhere and got quite emotional. Just a really good player and a really good person as well, more importantly. So, really sad about what's happened there. In terms of are there any issues before the season gets underway? Obviously, we wait to see if Alexander Isak is coming in at the time of recording. Because if that deal can't be completed, then it looks like Ekitike is the only centre forward, which, as talented as he looks, is quite a big ask of him immediately with other players who have left. And perhaps a bigger problem or potential problem is at centre-back, where they've got Virgil van Dijk, who is obviously excellent, but is getting on a bit now. Konate, who's in the final year of his contract and may be looking to leave and join Trent at Real Madrid. And Joe Gomez, who is currently injured and suffers a lot of injuries. They sold Jarell Quansah to Bayer Leverkusen, which I think was fine in isolation because he was sort of the fourth choice centre-back, so getting some decent money for him makes sense. But it leaves them with three centre-backs, one of whom is possibly distracted, one of whom is 34, I think, in Van Dijk, and one of whom in Gomez, who is injured quite a lot. And we saw 5 years ago, the last time Liverpool were defending the title, they only had three centre-backs. They all got injured and they really struggled through that season. But in terms of how they do, I think they'll win the league. They were the best team last year by, 10 points. They were 15 points clear at one point in March and just sort of coasted the rest of the season. So they were significantly ahead of the others. While they have lost some important players, you have to be excited about the players they've brought in. So I think they're going to win the title again. I mean, let's hope so anyway.
Meanwhile, Arsenal are going to want to go one better after finishing second in the league again for the past 3 seasons. They have also strengthened, adding Martin Zubimendi in central midfield and Noni Madueke on the wing. Crucially, they have finally signed a recognised centre-forward in Victor Gyökeres of Sporting Lisbon. Whether he, alongside Gabby Jesus and Kai Havertz, are enough up front for Arsenal to finally win the league title, though, is another matter entirely. For more on this, let's hear from Arsenal fan and friend of the show, Freddie Law-Keane.
After a third successive second-place finish, and progression in the Champions League to the semi-finals, but again, another trophyless year. So 2 important midfielders left, Jorginho and Thomas Partey. And thankfully, I'm delighted Thomas Partey's left, and the cloud he's had over the club, we can hopefully move on from, despite the trial that's going to be going on. It's a great relief for that to be at least out of the every single day activity of the club. But it did leave 2 major holes in midfield, a backup DM and a starting midfielder. Christian Norgard from Brentford has come in to replace Jorginho as the replacement defensive midfielder. And Martin Zubimendi of Real Sociedad and the Spanish international team has come in to be a starting midfielder, most likely to play the defensive midfield slot with it as like a deep playmaker, as Rice has solidified his sort of emergence as a proper box-to-box talent. So expect to see a lot of minutes of Zubimendi, and probably as the season starts to really get into full swing, he'll probably be the starting defensive midfielder for our team. We've brought in another goalkeeper, Kepa Arrizabalaga, who technically of Chelsea, another Chelsea signing. We'll get there. But as a backup goalkeeper for 5 million, I think that's actually superb business, Premier League proven. And, if David Raya gets injured for, let's say, 2-3 months, does it become a crisis if he's out? No, I'm very happy with that. Up front, everyone knew we needed attackers. I think I was here probably a year ago telling Brett that we needed attackers, and we didn't sign any. And instead this year we've signed Viktor Gyökeres up front, the new striker, see how he does. It's a huge signing. Arteta's not signed many strikers, pretty much just Gabriel Jesus and Viktor Gyökeres to start as a striker, and it's a huge signing. And somebody comes with an enormous wealth of goals and an enormous experience of stepping up to every challenge, but there's no challenge quite like the one he's facing now, and being a starting striker for a team that really has to win a major trophy.
Manchester City's challenge for the title fell away sharply last season following the season-ending Achilles injury to Rodri. While this emphasised just how important Rodri is to Manchester City, it did also highlight that there was a lack of depth in certain positions at Manchester City, in spite of them having a world-class squad that is the envy of many. They are going to put things right this season then, and they've already strengthened in numerous positions, crucially including that problematic left-back position that they've had for the last few seasons by signing Ryan Aït-Nouri from Wolves. I can't help thinking though that their participation in this summer's Club World Cup tournament will affect them as the season goes on, and they'll start to have heavy legs, and their title challenge will again fall away. Speaking of the Club World Cup, Chelsea won the entire tournament and are now supposedly the best club team in the entire world. They're going to follow up that this season by at least making a serious challenge for the league title. I can't help thinking that much like Manchester City though, their participation in the summer's Club World Cup and the fact that they've had a lack of time for rest and recovery since is going to catch up to them during the season, particularly given that both they and City are also competing in the Champions League this season. For more on this, let's head over to Chelsea fan and first-time contributor George Martin.
Hi, I'm George Martin and I'm a Chelsea fan. It's been a predictably wild summer of ins and outs at the club, and at the time of recording this, still nowhere near done. To run through the most notable of the many signings we've made, you have to start with Joao Pedro, who we signed from Brighton. He's already had a big impact, instrumental in us winning the Club World Cup this summer, and the very early signs are that he's going to give us some composure and quality up front that we've been missing. Our other big attacking signing is Liam Delap from Ipswich, who, as a striker, is going to offer us more of a traditional number 9. The big question will be how he handles the spotlight at a big club with massive expectations. Another attacking player to have joined us is Brazilian wonder kid Esteval, the 18-year-old winger who we've now finally officially signed from Palmeiras and looked great in scoring against us at the Club World Cup. He's not the broadest, so as a real youngster, naturally the challenge will be, can he deal with the physical demands of the Premier League? Yet to be seen. We also bought yet another young winger in 20-year-old Jamie Gittins from Borussia Dortmund on a trademark long contract. With our seemingly endless reservoir of young attacking players, who knows where he fits in, but let's see. And in the last week, we've brought in, surprise, surprise, another very young player in highly rated 19-year-old Dutch defender Jorrel Hato. Again, the physical demand of the Prem will be a real test, as will the news that Levi Colwill has done his ACL in his knee, meaning that Hato will likely be required to play at centre-back a lot this season. I'd be here all day if I went through the rest of the signings, so let's quickly talk about the departures. Jadon Sancho's gone after we decided not to buy him from Man United with his insane wage demands. The frustrating Joao Felix has left for a hefty fee to Saudi side Al Nassr. Kepa Arrizabalaga has finally moved on to the Chelsea retirement home in North London after a very mixed bag of a time in goal with us. Another of our many keepers has moved on in the popular Georgi Petrovic. And lastly, the selfish but talented Noni Madueke was shipped off for another sizable sum to Arsenal as well. In terms of major issues going into the new season, the biggest one for me is how we deal with the increased demands of Champions League football on our squad without the luxury of being able to play 2 separate 11s like we did in the Conference League last season, especially considering how minimal any summer break has been. The other issue is I still feel like Robert Sanchez isn't the right keeper for us if we want to be trying to win the league, plus who knows whether Nicholas Jackson will be here to fight for a place up front or not. The goal for us as a bare minimum is to finish top 4, which I expect us to do, plus put together a longer lasting title challenge and a decent run in the Champions League. I would say win a domestic cup, but sadly I expect we'll chuck them in again like last season in an effort to minimise the demands on the squad. I feel like the season after this one is the one where we'll be going all out to try and win the league.
Following their triumph in last season's League Cup final, Newcastle United then went on to secure Champions League football on the last day of the season, edging out Aston Villa purely on goal difference, who will now instead compete in the Europa League this season. Newcastle have strengthened with the addition of Anthony Elanga. However, there is serious doubt over whether Alexander Isak will continue to be a Newcastle United player for much longer, and so they are going to have to do something between now and the end of the transfer window to make sure that they can compete in both the Premier League and the Champions League this season. For more on this, let's head over to friend of the show, Joe Lenton.
After the highs of winning a trophy last season and qualifying for the Champions League, everything's gone a little bit downhill, it seems. Although, I mean, in terms of positivity, we've improved the goalkeeper position, I think, with Ramsdale coming in, and long-serving Martin Dubravka's gone off to Burnley, so, I mean, that's something. And in the winger department, we relied quite a lot on Jacob Murphy last season, and we've backed him up with Anthony Elanga from Forest, which is going to bring a lot more pace and even more kind of counter-attacking options. So again, you know, that's all right. But then Isak decides that he wants to leave. So that's rocked the boat somewhat. Looks like he's probably going to go off to Liverpool, unless Eddie Howe can work some magic and get him to stay. But I mean, it's left us in a bit of panic stations, because if Isak goes, I mean, I don't think we'll replace him with one player, so it's going to take at least a couple of additions, isn't it? So we're going to see what happens on that. But we've obviously been linked with Wissa at Brentford, which, you know, he scored a lot of goals from, especially from open play last year for Brentford. So I mean, I take him, I wouldn't grumble. Jackson, Chelsea, again, I think we'd need both of those if Isak goes. So I know there's been a lot of negativity about him, to be honest, but I mean, he's big, strong, quick. So I mean, the only quite funny thing is he'd be suspended for the first game because he got sent off against us at the end of last season. So one of those classic things. I mean, Newcastle fans, we're getting a bit stressed. I mean, we keep getting linked with all these players, and then one of the big boys swoops in and steals them from under our noses. So it's really frustrating, because I know there's all these rules in terms of how much you can spend and all that kind of stuff. But when you see Man United sacking off all the dinner ladies 1 minute and then splashing out millions for Sesko the next, it's just annoying. And it's not that I'm bitter or anything, as you can tell, but I mean, if we can get a couple of strikers in, a defender, then I'm relatively positive for the new season. I mean, we've got the same core team that did so well last time and strengthened a few areas, and got the Champions League to play in. It should be good. I mean, we're a good team, Eddie's a good boss, and we've got a lot of passion, so if Isak doesn't want to be involved in that, then whatevs. But yeah, I'm saying it's got to be aim for top 6, because I think teams like Chelsea are going to be stronger this year. Just get another cheeky cup like this one, and I'll be happy. So fingers crossed, hopefully in the next few days things will pick up and I will be less snotty, happier and ready for the new season. So yeah, away the lads.
Both Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspur had dreadful seasons by their standards last year, finishing 15th and 17th respectively. Spurs did salvage some pride by beating United in the Europa League final, meaning they will play Champions League football this season though. United are going to want to hit the ground running then, and to that end they've already signed Matheus Cunha, Brian Mbeumo and Benjamin Sesko for a combined £200 million. I said in my review of last season that Ruben Amorim could be out the door pretty quickly if things don't change at United, and I still think that that is going to be true. It's all well and good improving your firepower up front, but it does nothing to address the glaring needs that United have in other areas of the pitch. And so I think that they really could struggle again if they are not careful. As for the new Spurs manager, Thomas Frank, he goes into the new season with a lot of goodwill given the things that he achieved for Brentford, and he's going to want to prove himself at the top table given that he now has increased transfer budgets and he's going to be playing against some of Europe's top teams in the Champions League. In South London, meanwhile, Crystal Palace rightly feel hard done by given that they will be competing in the Europa Conference League at time of recording rather than the Europa League following their win in the FA Cup final. If they can build upon last season's mid-table finish, as well as also having a respectable showing in Europe, that should be seen as progress for a team that are now a piece of the Premier League's furniture. Instead, Nottingham Forest will be competing in the Europa League rather than the Europa Conference League this season. Forest were the surprise package of last season, and there was a realistic chance at one point that they might even qualify for the Champions League. If they want to build on that though, they're going to need to add some more depth and quality, as they've only signed Jair Cunha and Igor Jesus from Botafogo following their exploits in the Club World Cup, and Forest still have not directly replaced either Anthony Elanga or Danilo, both of whom were incredibly important players for Forest last season. Brighton and Hove Albion, Bournemouth, Everton, Fulham and West Ham have all got good squads and experienced managers, and so all of them should be thereabouts in that mid-table. Wolves, meanwhile, certainly need to add some quality to their squad, and they certainly need to replace Matheus Cunha, who has gone to Manchester United, but I think they should be in that mid-table pack as well. If these teams can maybe have a little bit of luck as the season progresses, any of those teams could potentially get into the 6th or 7th place spots that would give them European football next season, given that they don't have to have the increased workload of European football this season, and so will have an edge on some of those teams like Nottingham Forest and Crystal Palace that will have to juggle commitments both home and abroad this season. As for the relegation contenders, it's very easy to look at the 3 promoted sides, Burnley, Leeds United and Sunderland. There is a big step up in quality from the Championship to the Premier League, and I would expect all 3 teams to struggle this season. Burnley have added some depth and a little bit of quality, but other than Kyle Walker and Axel Tuanzebe, there's not a lot of Premier League experience there, and they've also lost their goalkeeper, James Trafford, who was immense for them last year. They have replaced him with a proven Premier League keeper in Martin Dubravka, but I fully expect that they will struggle this year. The same is also true for Leeds. They've added a lot of quality, there's certainly a lot of physicality in the additions that they've made, but I would expect them to struggle unless they continue to add some more depth and a lot more quality between now and the end of the transfer window. For more on this, let's head over to Leeds fan and friend of the show, Ryan Owen.
One thing we do know is that Daniel Farke likes his fullbacks to bomb on and provide the width offensively. And so it's important, I think, that the likes of Ampadu and Stack are covering for Goodmanson, and on the other side, Jayden Bogle, if he's fit. It's going to be an interesting setup. All signs seem to point towards Farke being a bit more pragmatic. We're a very good team in the Championship, but this is a different level. And it does look like he'll be playing 2 6s, potentially, providing a lot of structure in the middle of the park, a lot of solidity, and it might not always be pretty. I don't think Farke's going to be expecting to be keeping the ball as much. We have to remember the squad was strong last season, much stronger than Burnley or Sunderland's, and we were a good team last year, but it doesn't always translate to the Premier League, and this is a new level, hence them trying to sign a different profile. I think they've tried to resolve the issues at the back and in midfield first, I think that they feel as though the stardust up front is secondary and can be found later, but you're not going to do anything, and I think I agree with this, you're not going to do anything in this Premier League if you're completely leaky at the back and easy to slice through, and teams look forward to playing you because Bukayo Saka and even teams like, other teams, Bournemouth have some great players, Cliver, Utara, Palace, Brentford, these are high quality teams, much better than we are right now. And so these teams, you have to find a way to battle them and to stop them from doing what they want to do. And it looks as though that's what Leeds are trying to do.
As for Sunderland, they have made some very good signings. Simon Adingra, Enzo Lafay and Granit Xhaka should all be valuable first team regulars for them this season. They do need to improve in defence though, and it sadly speaks volumes that Joe Bellingham thinks that his development will be aided more by signing with Borussia Dortmund rather than being a first team regular in the Premier League for the Black Cats. I fully expect them to struggle this season then. Finally, that leaves Brentford. I think they are really going to struggle this season. Not only have they lost Mark Flacken, Brian Mbeumo and Christian Norgard, but it's also looking very likely that Johan Wisser is going to go too, and they've lost one of the most respected managers in the league in Thomas Frank. For me, that's an even bigger loss than the players that have gone, and so I really do expect that they'll be in and around the relegation places this season. Please excuse the pun, but to be frank, I think that they, Burnley and Sunderland will be the three relegated teams this season, with Leeds finishing in 17th. Finally, let's go back to some of our contributors to see who they think will win the Premier League this season.
If I was to predict, unfortunately, this isn't the year I want to say Arsenal are going to win the league, because Liverpool have done really well, and they've done something which is hard to do, and recognise the faults in your squad even after you've won the league, and they've invested loads, and potentially with even more coming in with Isak, who's one of the most talented players we've seen in the Premier League in years, could be joining up the squad, with Ekitike, who's also joined, and Florian Wirtz, and it's a scary prospect.
In terms of who's going to win the Premier League, I wish it wasn't the case, but I do expect Liverpool to win the league again, as they look annoyingly well set to do so.
I'll be quite honest, probably Liverpool, but I don't really care.
For now, that brings an end to this 2025-26 English Premier League season preview edition of the BCS Podcast. As always, thank you so much for joining me again, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye bye now! The BCS Podcast is written, produced, edited and hosted by me, Brett Walker. Thank you to Boris Anderoff and Pixabay for the use of the music and sound effects in this podcast. This episode features contributions from Andrew Beasley, Freddie Law Keane, Joe Lenton, George Martin and Ryan Owen.